Do you know of JRose11? If not, no worries, I'm here to fill you in. He's a PokeTuber who does content very similar to this. Solo runs on the first generation games of Pokemon Red and Blue. Now, I don't mean to make it sound like he's a one-trick pony. He definitely has a variety of content, and if you head over to his channel, you can check that out for yourself, which you definitely should. More than that, I wanted to up the ante and challenge JRose to see if he could do a better job on his Clefairy run than I did. You see, JRose has a list of sorts, a tier list for all of the not fully evolved Pokemon in the first generation games and their solo runs. Ranking of the Pokemon is based on a variety of criteria, including the time that it takes, the level at the end of the run, and other things, such as ease of use and utility. Since he hadn't done a run for Clefairy yet, and it looked like a fun pick, I decided that I would take it upon myself to record this video and see if he was interested in competing against me for the title of Best Clefairy Champion. So while we're talking about Clefairy, let's bring up some stats. Clefairy in general does not really have great stats, but they're pretty well rounded. Its relatively even stats allow it to be fairly bulky while deliver a punch as well if it's a high enough level. The one pain spot that I think we're going to have to deal with is speed. In Generation 1 especially, speed is one of the most crucial elements of the game. The best defense in this generation is to use overwhelming force to destroy your opponent before they can even touch you. Being unable to outspeed your opponent means that you'll run into trouble, which you will see throughout this run. It does have a very impressive move pool though, which will come in handy throughout the run. So having made it through Viridian Forest fairly quickly, I decided that it would be fun to challenge Brock at level 8 just to see what I was getting myself into and to see if there was a chance that we could take him down early. As you can see, that did not pan out well. Geodude is simply too bulky, it resists us too well, and it deals enough damage that even with some growls, there isn't really a survivability chance for us. When it becomes clear that this battle isn't going to work out, I just decide to go ahead and reset, head back down, and gain some levels so that we can come back and fight him a little bit better equipped. This will require me to go back through Viridian Forest, fight the bug catcher that I neglected earlier, then make my way down to Viridian City and off to the west towards Victory Road so that we can fight our rival. I can tell you that by now, speed is already becoming a factor in this run. Once we arrive at Rival 2A, we have our first spot of trouble in the run, other than Brock, which is this Pidgey is very, very trolly. If it uses Sand Attack on you, makes it difficult to attack, and then before you know it, you have Bulbasaur leech seeding you and taking you down bit by bit. If you're wondering why I chose Bulbasaur for the run, I wasn't exactly sure which other starter to choose. And I remember that Bulbasaur was the de facto best starter in Generation 1. I know that's more for the player's sake than an NPC's sake, but I decided to just give him the Bulbasaur anyways. Having high special in Generation 1 is a huge boon, being that it covers two bases, both your attack and defense in terms of special attacks, so I decided that it would be good to give him that asset. Now we come back to Brock, now equipped with Sing, but it doesn't really seem like it's doing very much for us. As you've probably seen JRose mention in his runs before, Brock, for some inexplicable reason, carries 5 full heals. Still, I do what I can to go ahead and chip down Geodude, and whenever it comes to Onyx, I came to find out that Brock has his own stock of full heals for Onyx as well. That's right, he's got 5 full heals for Geodude and 5 full heals for Onyx as well. It became abundantly clear very quickly into the battle that there was no way that this was going to work. I did try it one more time, however, I didn't really have much better luck. Even whenever I managed to get to the Onyx, it would just take me out, or I would run out of power points way too quickly to do anything of real value. Seeing as the wall has become power points rather than raw power or survivability, or rather a cruel combination of all three, it looks like it's time to start grinding again. Getting Clefairy to level 18 will have it learn Double Slap. This is the key to defeating Brock. I sail back to his gym, ready to fight again, and I do try out a variety of techniques against him. I go in with Double Slap first, I try to pop off growls so that he doesn't hurt me too much, then I switch back to scratches so that I can try to chip through his defenses with critical hits, hopefully, and I do manage to make it through the Geodude very, very easily. However, it's when the Onyx comes out that things start to get a little bit more complicated. Bide is a tricky mistress, and Onyx is still very, very durable. More than that, it does still hit like a truck when it decides to hit, so I find myself in the red very early on, and I start attacking back too little too late. I'm not totally discouraged though, I go back into the fight again with a rejuvenated sense of what to do. Start out with scratches because he hasn't used any defense curls yet to eat through his HP in the early game. Lower his attack with growl whenever I can. Then use double slap to eat through its HP once it starts using defense curls. 2 to 5 HP drain per turn is better than 1 from scratch. It should probably go without saying that I've mostly abandoned the sing tactics by now. They just don't really work whenever it only has 55% accuracy, and the times whenever it does hit, Brock's just gonna use a full heal anyways. That being said, whenever he uses bide, I will switch to growl tactics or sing tactics depending on the situation. I kinda just mix it up here until I finally manage to get him going to sleep, and then at the end I just decide to send it. I knew that bide would kill me, so I had to go all in, so that's what I did, and it ended up paying off. It was around this time that J-Rose got back to me on Twitter about an inquiry I had given him. I was wondering if he sped up gameplay while he was actually playing or only in post. Turns out that he does it while he's playing, and I tried to do that as well, but it killed the frame rate and made the capture look like garbage, so I ended up playing the whole game at normal speed. It was also around this time that I realized that I had misspelled Clefairy in my template, so I fixed it. On to Mount Moon now, and there's a glorious asset in this cave by the name of TMO1. That would be Mega Punch, which is a fantastic stab move for an early game Clefairy. With Mega Punch, we managed to melt through the remainder of Mount Moon fairly quickly and make our way to Cerulean, where I go straight to the gym. I don't know yet whether or not Misty is a good idea at this point, but I'm level 22, so I figure the worst thing that can happen is I fail and then go fight the rival instead. After taking out the trainers in the gym, I save, heal up, then head to Misty. The first battle doesn't go all that well. Mega Punch is dealing decent damage, but I'm taking a lot more damage back than I had originally anticipated. Staryu goes down without much trouble, but Starmie takes me out with a single water gun. Whenever I reset and load back in, I don't even bother to heal. At this point, I mostly just want to see what Misty's capable of and try to form a strategy. Fight starts off a little bit differently than last time. She leads with an X defend while I use Mega Punch, and wait, did you see that? That's not good. Seeing as King is taking super effective damage from water-type moves, clearly something is amiss. I load the game back up, take a look at my Pokédex, and apparently I have a Charmander, which I don't remember getting. Evidently, the GameShark codes coded my Clefairy improperly, and it thinks that it's part Charmander. A cursory glance at the rest of my Pokédex confirms that I have no Clefairy data, and something here is very, very wrong. Which sucks, because that means I'm gonna have to do the whole thing again. While my second attempt plays in the background, I'm going to fill you in a little bit more on the rules for the competition that I was talking about earlier since I neglected to do that. The basic rules will mostly just follow J-Rose 11's typical solo run strategy. In battle, only the Pokemon Clefairy can be used. Other Pokemon are permitted in the party as HM slaves but cannot be used for anything else whatsoever. In the event that Clefairy is knocked out in battle, that is the end of the run and you must restart. The second rule is that items are not permitted in combat. You're free to carry a stock of items to use outside of combat, but in combat, no items can be used. You must rely on your Pokemon and your Pokemon alone. The third rule is that in this run, glitches and exploits cannot be used. Things such as the Mount Moon manipulations that allow a player to go all the way through without encountering a single random encounter are forbidden, and the instant text glitch from the bicycle shop is also banned. If you're the type of player that likes to use a Pokédoll to get through the Lavender Town Tower, think again, that is also not allowed. Which brings me to the grading rubric for deciding who is the actual victor of these runs once they have both concluded. We will go by the level that the Pokemon is at each gym encounter. For every level lower that J-Rose 11's Clefairy is at each gym leader, he will gain a point and vice versa. So, since my Clefairy was level 18 when fighting Brock, if his was level 17, he would get a point. If he needs to raise his Clefairy to level 19, then I would get a point for that section. At the end of the game, the Hall of Fame time will be recorded. For every 15 minutes faster one of the players is, they will earn a point. Whoever has the most points at the end will win. Being that J-Rose is more experienced out of the two of us, I have no reservations about his ability to defeat me, especially since he's going to get to see my run and make strategies around it. Still, I feel like this will be fun. As you can see, my second run has caught up to where I was before, and we have defeated Misty. I used a different method of obtaining Clefairy at the beginning of the game this time, and it seemed to work. Everything is working exactly as intended, and I will say it was quite a bit easier to go through a lot of this stuff with actual stab in play. With Misty out of the way, we make our way to Rival 2 and proceed to Mega Punch everything that we can, if we can. The problem is that Mega Punch doesn't have great accuracy, and Pidgeotto likes to use Sand Attack. However, once Pidgeotto's down, Abra doesn't like to attack, or rather it can't. We can learn Minimize, and then we get to fight the rest of the team. In this run through, we won't even need to use Minimize, we can just just Mega Punch and pound our way through everything on the enemy team. With Rival 2 defeated, you can proceed up through Nugget Bridge and then go free Bill before heading down to Vermilion City. In this particular run, I failed to catch a Paris in Mount Moon, so I needed something else that could use Cut. Oddish seemed to fit the bill and it was on the way, so I whittled one down with Water Gun and then captured it with a Pokeball. If you're curious as to why I'm using Water Gun and not Bubble Beam, it's because I didn't know if I was going to need that slot later and if I was going to overwrite it. I knew that I was going to need Bubble Beam at the end of the game, so I just decided to use Water Gun for now to be safe. Got me to the SSN where we got Body Slam, a fantastic TM that can easily replace Mega Punch. It's more accurate and it has a paralyzed chance. It is just the obvious choice. So heading into the fight against Rival 3, which is usually the quicker and faster battle, I use a couple of minimizes for some badge boosts and then Body Slam my way through the entire team. Easy peasy. Ivysaur is the only one who puts up a little bit of a struggle, but he still goes down in 2 hits just as well. With Rival 3 out of the way, we can proceed to the Captain's Quarters, get the HM for Cut, and then get off of the boat so that we can go acquire something else that we're going to desperately need for this run. Like I said earlier, I failed to catch a Paris, so I needed to go get a Diglett so that I could actually use Dig. One Pokeball did the trick miraculously, and I was on my way to the 3rd gym. There's not really much to say about Lieutenant Surge. I used the minimize tactic for some badge boosts to deal more damage. I do feel as though the battle was fairly consistent. They missed a couple more times than they ordinarily would, but not enough that I believe that it actually made a significant difference. In the end, Surge went down and I got my badge. Following the defeat of the 3rd gym leader, I head out to the Pokemon fan club to let this guy talk at me for a little bit so I can get a bike voucher. Dig brings me back to Cerulean City where I heal, then I head to the bike shop to actually get the bike. Now, I don't believe that J-Rose typically uses the bike in his runs, but I'm going to use it in mine. I'm able to get to Rock Tunnel without very much issue. This Geodude guy, who usually gives people trouble in their solo runs, is no match for Bubble Beam, and we're able to make our way through the rest of the cave with relative ease. The problem is that I forgot to bring repels and ended up encountering tons of wild Pokemon. Once we make it to the other side, I head straight to Celadon and go right to the Rocket Hideout. I know that most everything here is too low of a level to pose a threat to me, and I can get some levels while clearing part of the game that I need to. The hideout is mostly a joke with weak puzzles and trainers who can't hold a candle to the king's might. Even the 2 rocket guards that are posted outside of Giovanni's office cannot withstand the king's torment. It seems that for now anyways, fully evolved Pokemon aren't going to be a deal breaker when it comes to the momentum of this run. Having a level lead from the early game on account of needing to level up to fight Brock really did set us up for success in this run, and so far, there's been nothing that can challenge us. Part of me is concerned that Giovanni could actually change this, but once I get into battle, all of my concerns are assuaged. Onyx goes down in a single hit, as does Rhydon, and while Kangaskhan does take a little bit longer to take out, it's still only a 3-hit knockout and it is not dealing any damage back to us in the meantime. King is now level 37 and Giovanni is defeated. With Giovanni out of the way, I head to the Celadon department store, grab a couple of fresh waters, and get myself the TM for Ice Beam. With that, I head straight to the gym and proceed to get my butt kicked, actually. Victory Bell isn't a problem, even though it's using Wrap and it's a little bit annoying, and then it gets a critical hit on Razor Leaf, I do manage to freeze it. Once it's out of the way, Tangela goes down in a single Ice Beam, but when Vileplume comes out, everything turns for the worst. A single Sleep Powder sealed my fate, as Petal Dance did the rest of the damage necessary to knock King out. Of course, I wasn't dissuaded. I knew that if I got the proper rolls in this fight, I would be able to defeat Erica easily. So I load up the game, head back in, and proceed to Ice Beam everything exactly the same way that I was before. Victory Bell is just as annoying this time as last time, but it does miss a Sleep Powder. Tangela is a non-issue just as before. And when Vileplume comes out, it goes for Mega Drain instead of Sleep Powder. This seals its fate, and I walk away with Erica's badge. Now that Erica's been defeated, there is one more thing that I need to handle while I'm here. I still don't have the HM for Fly, and I would really like that. However, once I teach it to my Pidgey, I come to find out that my map is apparently messed up, which is a little weird. But I can still fly. Rival 4 is waiting for me in the tower, and because I've done everything beyond this point, he is absolutely underleveled. Clefairy actually outspeeds his Pidgeotto. It outspeeds it. Can you believe that? And the Gyarados. Because of the raw levels that King has at this point, there's just nothing that can stand up to him. Kadabra does manage to outspeed, but its Disable fails, and everything in the team goes down in a single hit. At this point, I'm feeling pretty powerful. Clefairy hasn't been legitimately threatened by anything in a long time, but I have forgotten my repels once more, so my time is suffering yet again. If J-Rose comes prepared, he could take the lead in time at this segment, especially if he's similarly prepared for the Dark Cave. Once we're done at the tower, Koga's next on the list, and he is not easy. This is the first difficulty spike that we have in the entire run. It doesn't seem that way at first. Everything's going down in a couple of hits, just as everything has before. We get a critical hit on the coughing, but when the wheezing decides to blow up, that's whenever I realize we're in trouble. It occurs to me that I have absolutely no idea whether or not we can handle one of these self-destructs even at full HP. This is pretty concerning because King is kind of bulky, but not really. We're now dealing with Pokemon that are fully evolved, so it's getting a little bit dicey out there. On my second attempt, I go up against the Weezing with even less HP than before, and it doesn't even need to blow up to kill me. It just uses Sludge a single time and I'm out. It's on my third attempt that I have a little bit better luck though. I'm feeling confident at this point that we can win the fight as long as we get the proper rolls. Coughing uses an X attack on the first turn, Thunderbolt takes it out. Muck is taken out in 3 turns. The second Coughing goes down to a critical hit, and then it's just Weezing between us and the badge. Weezing gets some bad luck on its attacks, and then does hit with self-destruct, but we have enough HP to pull through. At this point, I'm legitimately considering erecting a shrine and starting a new religion to worship Clefairy. The Safari's up next, we grab the teeth, and then the HM for Surf, which means that we are headed to fight Rival Fivel. Now, if you thought that Koga presented a difficulty spike in this game, I have got news for you. Koga does not hold a candle to Rival Fivel for Clefairy. Even with favorable moves, the lack of speed was really getting to me. Clefairy would do reasonably well throughout the fight, but because of its lack of speed, Alakazam would always either be able to take it out or weaken it so much that Venusaur was able to finish the job. So now we've got a little bit of a dilemma on our hands. Do we want to use rare candies to see if we can get through the fight quicker, or are we going to accept the fact that even with rare candies, Clefairy is just super slow and we're not really going to get the desired result? I decide that for now, I'm basically just going to pound my head against the wall and hope for some favorable outcomes. After all, with a couple of lucky misses or a crit here or there was a chance that I could take this guy out and proceed with the run. However, I kept running into the same problems over and over. Even if I did manage to take Alakazam out, Venusaur would be waiting right around the corner to take me down. And Venusaur did outspeed me, by the way. Or if it was a speed tie, then it won a fair amount of the time. Each attempt that I did played out just a little bit differently, but it wasn't until Pidgeot landed a sand attack on me that things changed. I noticed that on the next turn I managed to outspeed, and even though I was missing a little bit more often, I was outspeeding things like Gyarados as well. Badge Boost had officially come into play and it was now giving me the speed that I needed to get past everything except for Alakazam. By the time that Venusaur finally came out, it was still faster, but with a Razor Leaf miss I managed to secure the victory and make it past Rival Fivel. With him out of the way, we went and got Lapras for the rest of our HM slavery, and then made our way to Giovanni again. Now, there isn't really much to say about this fight. It's very anticlimactic after the 5th rival fight because nothing here can handle King. In fact, the fight was so easy that I actually gave him another chance. I don't know what I was thinking when I did this, but I decided to restart and see if that was the way the fight was supposed to play out, because I do know that he missed a little bit more than usual. So we go into the fight the second time, and Giovanni does do marginally better. However, the fight mostly plays out the same way that it did before, with all of his Pokemon going down in 1 or 2 hits, except for Kangaskhan. He lasts 3. And by the time that it's all said and done, King is just a little bit below half health, and I feel assured in my absolute victory against Giovanni too. Giovanni's down, so we're going to head back to Fuchsia City and get the TM for strength that we neglected to get earlier. While we're there, it probably makes sense to get the rare candy and then head all the way back to Pallet Town. Now that we have Lapras, we can safely surf all the way down with a repel that I've actually remembered to get. Once we're finished with the Pokemon Mansion, we go to fight Blaine, and there's not really much to say about this fight either. Even though we're just using Bubble Beam, and even though it still takes 2 or more hits to kill all of these Pokemon, there's no challenge here. Rapidash manages to get a Stomp that takes out about 1/3 of King's health, but Blaine then uses a Super Potion at full health, then an Ember, and just goes down easily. I was expecting a little bit more of a challenge, but to be honest, I was more scared of Sabrina than I was Blaine, which is why I fought him first. After Blaine is defeated, I decided that it's time to stop avoiding my demons and head straight to Saffron, heal up, and then head for the witch herself. If you weren't aware, psychic types were extremely overpowered in the first generation. They basically had no weaknesses and could hit like trucks. So, whenever it came to Sabrina, there was a reason to be a little bit nervous. However, once I got into the fight, I didn't really feel that nervous anymore. Sure, I had to restart the first time because it disabled Body Slam on the first turn, which is just not gonna work. But the second time through, I encountered little to no resistance. King goes in, tanks a Psywave, Body Slams a Kadabra, takes a couple hits, but Mr. Mime goes down the same way. The Venomoth also takes a couple hits, misses a Stun Spore, and then gets a taste of its own medicine in Paralysis. Alakazam was smart enough to use a Reflect, but it too gets paralyzed and then taken down. Sabrina actually posed less of a threat than Blaine did. At this point I'm a little shell-shocked because I sort of assumed that Sabrina was going to be one of the worst fights of this entire challenge, but as it turns out, she was one of the easier ones. So we head back to Viridian City, make sure to heal up, and then go to fight Giovanni for the final time. Like many of the other battles, there isn't much to say here. All you gotta do is go in with Bubble Beam and Ice Beam and you will destroy everything on his team. Nidoqueen and Nidoking take 2 hits each because he uses a guard special on the first turn, but other than that, there's nothing to be concerned about here. I didn't even heal before I fought him. With Rhydon taken down by a single Bubble Beam, we are officially at the final stages of the game. There's only 6 battles between us and the Hall of Fame. However, 2 of those battles are rival battles, and as we've seen in the most recent rival battles, I'm starting to struggle with them quite a bit. It's not necessarily King's fault, I kinda just keep throwing him at the situation hoping that he'll do better in situations where he doesn't really have an opportunity to. I mean, the first battle against Rival 6 goes so well in the beginning that I assume, hey, there has to be a win possible in here somewhere. But, once again, Alakazam ends up whittling us down to the point where Venusaur can easily finish the job. As you'll see as I fast forward through the subsequent attempts at this battle, there wasn't really much that we could do to improve our odds. We could do very well against the first half of the team, sometimes better than others, but once the Alakazam came out, it would either kill Clefairy, or it would set it up so that Venusaur could deal the killing blow. It was the speed that was really the issue here. I'm not exaggerating when I say that speed is a very important asset in the first generation. Even in runs against Rival 6 where we had over half health going in against Venusaur, we could still lose because it outsped us and had great special attack. If we were the ones winning that speed matchup, then we would be the ones winning the battle. Unfortunately, unlike Rival 5, there wasn't really any badge boosts to take advantage of here. I don't believe that at this stage Pidgeot still knows Sand Attack, and I didn't have any moves that were going to give me a badge boost either. But eventually I do get the perfect run that allows us to proceed to Victory Road. Battle starts off with Pidgeot using Agility, getting paralyzed, and then going down to Thunderbolt. Rhydon is a non-issue just like he always has been. Gyarados manages to get off a Dragon Rage but goes down in 1 hit. Growlithe uses Leer. And that is where we manage to get our badge boost that carries us through the rest of it. Alakazam can still go faster, but it gets a critical hit, and then Venusaur, despite going first and getting a critical hit of its own, decides to go for Growth and goes down. So I guess maybe the badge boost didn't matter that much in the end anyways, but it kind of felt like it did in the moment, and you know, I was pretty juiced by it, not gonna lie. Anyways, now that we've finally gotten past that roadblock, we can go ahead and proceed to Victory Road. It's a pretty boring jaunt, so I'm just gonna go ahead and skip to Lorelei, which is where things get interesting again, and I reach yet another roadblock. By the time that we get there, King is level 53, and I think, you know, this might be enough. I'm taking Growls on the first turn and getting badge boosts from it. For some reason, Dugong isn't using Rest like it's supposed to, and, you know, I'm not quite one-hitting everything, but I'm dealing enough damage that I know I can consistently kill these Pokemon. However, as you'll see, things just don't go right. In the first battle, Jinx manages to freeze me with an Ice Punch. That right there is a run ender. If you're not aware, there is no way to thaw out in Generation 1 unless you use an Ice Heal or you get hit by a Fire-type move. Neither of those are a possibility in the parameters that we've set for this fight. I'm not allowed to use an item to thaw myself out, and Lorelei has no Fire-type moves, so whenever you get frozen, that's it. There is nothing that you can do. As I would come to find out though, it didn't really matter. Even whenever I didn't get frozen, it was really difficult to take down Jinx. Thunderbolts didn't seem to be doing very much damage. Body Slam did a little bit more, but it still was not enough to seal the deal. Similar to the Rival 6 battle, it would weaken King enough to the point that Lapras would be able to take it out no problem. So I decide we're going to need a different strategy going into this fight and start replacing Body Slam with Mega Kick before going into the Elite Four Chambers. Though I was curious to see whether or not this would actually work, I didn't exactly get the chance. See, for whatever reason, the AI started acting more typical once I got Mega Kick on Clefairy. Dugong started using Rest on its second turn, and Cloyster started using Supersonic, which led to an early defeat without even managing to deal a scratch against it. Still though, I feel confident that this new strategy might have legs, so I decided to try it a second time. We take out Body Slam, go in with Mega Kick, and see if we can take out that Jinx in a single hit, or at least fewer hits than we have been before. Dugong goes for a Rest on turn 1, that doesn't work, then again on turn 2, and it's taking 3 turns to knock this thing out even with Thunderbolt. Cloyster manages to get off another Confusion, but I managed to Thunderbolt through it this time. By the time that Slowbro comes out, I'm honestly starting to get a little nervous. It uses Amnesia, and even with the Paralysis, I'm going through a lot of power points on Thunderbolt just to get down to the Jinx. Whenever it comes time for Mega Kick to go out, it still doesn't manage to kill, and I realize that something needs to change. If I can't outspeed, I need to at least be able to kill these Pokemon in a single hit. As much as it pained me to do it, I realized that what I was going to need to do was raise King's level. Level 53 just wasn't adequate for this, and I didn't really feel like grinding if I didn't have to yet, so I went ahead and used some rare candies, didn't save, and went in to see if it made a difference. Lo and behold, it did. We were dealing a lot more damage against Dugong now. By the time that Cloyster came out, I knew that it was probably still a 1 or 2 hit attack, but provided it didn't get too many hits off, I would be able to take it down as well. In this particular run, it managed to lower King's attack, which meant that whenever it came time to attack the Jinx, I wasn't actually going to know whether or not Mega Kick would defeat it. However, with a lucky critical hit, we managed to get past it just in time to get taken down by Lapras. I'm going to increase the speed now because you're going to see that I'm going to try variations of this strategy several times in an attempt to get past her and onto the other fights. I was in somewhat of an autopilot mode at this point, and I didn't really want to accept the fact that I might need to go out there and actually just grind. See, if there's one thing that you'll learn about me, it's that I hate grinding. I absolutely hate it. Needing to grind to get past Brock, that sucked. It was so boring and I hated every minute of it. The only benefit that provided was it kept us relatively high leveled throughout the run so that we didn't have to do much other grinding. In fact, we pretty much plowed through the entire game. But now that we're getting to the late game, things are more difficult. As you can see though, this strategy did eventually work. I managed to get past Lorelei, and once I went on to Bruno, I was a little bit more scared. It wasn't that Onyx seemed to pose a threat, I really wasn't worried about that, but there were several fighting type Pokemon on the team that I was not excited to have to deal with. Fortunately, even though they went first, they either missed or used attacks that didn't knock me out, and I was able to get through. How I managed to get through this particular battle is anyone's guess. I just got extremely lucky, and it stayed paralyzed or used moves that didn't knock me out. However, as any soloer knows, it's not Bruno that's going to give you the most problems, it's Agatha. J-Rose affectionately refers to this battle as the Agatha Lottery, and he is not wrong. There are so many things that can go wrong with this fight. You can get confused, you can get put to sleep, you're almost certainly going to be outsped even if you're using a good Pokemon. In the case of King, I got manhandled until the Golbat came out and then managed to deal a little bit of damage. But once the Gengar took to the field again, it was game over. There was just nothing that I could do against it. I managed to get a few lucky licks in, especially after paralysis took hold, and kept the Gengar anchored down long enough for King to kill it. But by that point, only 2 of Agatha's Pokemon had been taken out, and King was sitting on a measly 13 HP. There was simply nothing that it could do to ward off the Haunter that came afterwards, put it to sleep, and then nightshaded it to death. So now we're back, and I'm not really feeling very good about the run. Mega Kick, obviously that strategy is working to some extent against Lorelei, but it's still tricky and doesn't necessarily have the best success rating. Sometimes we can beat Lorelei, sometimes we can't. It really seems up to chance, and more often than not, we are not making it past her, even with 3 level ups and the Mega Kick installed in place of Body Slam. The footage you're seeing now is unedited. I mean, other than the speed up, I'm just letting it play out because I want you to be able to see just how many times I had to attempt this. Now, in comparison to some of the runs that J-Rose has done, there is no competition here. I mean, I had to reset quite a few times, but I cannot imagine the frustration that he's had to deal with in the past. If I remember correctly, his Jigglypuff run, which would be fairly similar to this one, took him somewhere around 3 hours just to get past the Elite Four. And you might be asking yourself, why aren't you just saving between the Elite Four members? If it's so up to chance, why don't you just do that? And you see, that's actually pretty much the point, is that J-Rose likes to save before the Elite Four so that you have to go in and fight the Elite Four and the champion all in one go. What this is designed to do is that if you've been relying on a luck-based strategy, that should end at this point in the run. If you got to save in between every single fight, sure, of course you have a good chance to actually get through and make it to the Hall of Fame. However, the likelihood of a luck-based strategy working against 5 tough trainers, the 5 toughest trainers in the game, in a row without saving in between, that's actually pretty low. And you can see that represented here. Even though I am using a luck-based strategy and it is having decent efficacy, I am still most of the time losing against Lorelei. Bruno isn't a problem, but Agatha. Oh, look at this Agatha run. Check this out. Nightshade. Hypnosis. Nightshade. Hypnosis. Confuse Ray. Nightshade. It's done. Like, you can even see at that point that I'm using a different strategy, and you're going to see it a little bit more here. In fact, you might have caught it there. I have applied Double Team to King. Now, it may be at this juncture that J-Rose and I end up differing in our philosophies. I would not be surprised if he used a different strategy whenever he does his run. However, I also wouldn't be surprised if he does the same thing. Minimize is a move that Clefairy can learn. Double Team is essentially identical to it, I just am able to teach it with a TM. The idea here is to get badge boosts from our double teams to raise the rest of our stats to a point where we can easily chew through the remainder of these Elite Four members. For those of you who are not in the know, the badges in Generation 1 actually do boost the stats of your Pokemon by 12.5%. But there's a glitch in the game where anytime your stats are affected in battle, whether they are lowered or raised by means of Growl, Swords Dance, Double Team, those boosts get applied a second time. So for every time that I'm using Double Team, I'm raising my stats. The reason that I say that J-Rose and I may differ in our philosophies at this juncture is because it seems like a very luck-based strategy. Sure, I'm raising my stats with the badge boosts, but I'm also raising my evasion, and as you can see, that's already working out for me with Gengar missing things like Confuse Ray, Hypnosis, which seems to have 100% accuracy for Agatha, things like that. And I take advantage of this all the way up to getting faster than her entire team. That's the reason that I got it in the first place. I figured if I could use it, avoid a few attacks, and end up faster than her Gengars, I actually stood a chance. And as you can see from the way that this is playing out, I was right. Gengar dealt some blows in the beginning, but once I got those badge boosts going, there was nothing on the team that was going to be able to stop me. Leveling up in the middle of a battle will actually erase all of your badge boosts, so I even made sure to use a rare candy before going into this fight. This worked out also, and King didn't level up until the end of the fight. Because of the fact that it raises evasion, I could see J-Rose arguing that this is a very luck-based strategy. I don't necessarily think that he's wrong either. However, I would argue that this made the battles much more consistent. Once I was able to be faster than Agatha, I was able to defeat her. And the only other way that we would have gotten past these trainers is if we leveled up to an egregious level and just overpowered them by being bigger. Out of the two scenarios, using luck against a luck-based Elite Four, Agatha, or leveling up into the 80s or 90s just so that we can outspeed, I prefer the one where we save some time, use some badge boosts, dodge a couple of attacks, and get to Lance. Speaking of Lance, I suppose I should narrate this battle. King comes out, takes a Leer, gets the badge boost, uses Double Team, and it is already faster than Gyarados. By the time that I realize this, a Thunderbolt is deployed, and the rest of the battle is basically history. You may have noticed that I actually deleted Mega Kick to make room for Blizzard. This was a highly experimental play. I had no idea if I was going to need Mega Kick later in this run. I simply had not made it to this point in the run yet. But the badge boosts were what was making the run consistent, so I decided I needed to keep Double Team and forego the only stab move that I had. As you can see though, it seems like it worked out. I'm still dodging attacks, I'm still dealing mega damage, and I was able to defeat Lance on my first try. That being said, the toughest battle is still ahead, and as you know, I have been struggling against the rival fights. Even though you could argue that the champion fight is different, it isn't really. It's the same Pokemon with mostly the same moves, they're just a lot stronger now than they were in the past. So saying that I felt a little jittery going into this fight is a bit of an understatement. But I knew that failure here meant I was going all the way back to the beginning, and I really didn't want to do that. So we start out the battle with a Double Team. Pidgeot uses Mirror Move, which of course doesn't work because it goes first. It's going for a Sky Attack, but I decide, hey, we're already sticking to the Double Team strategy, why don't we go ahead and try and do that? I thought that I might outspeed with 2 Double Team badge boosts under my belt, but I was wrong. Luckily, the raised evasion managed to allow us to avoid that Sky Attack and paralyze Pidgeot. Still, the fact that I wasn't able to outspeed, and also the fact that I wasn't able to take out Pidgeot in one hit, made me a little bit nervous. So I decided that I was going to use another couple of Double Teams to really cement the badge boosts that I already had, even if it meant that Pidgeot could use Mirror Move to raise some of its evasion on its own. By the time that Pidgeot started preparing another Sky Attack, I knew it was time to go, so I used a Thunderbolt and knocked it out with a crit. Crit mattered, so that we could get to the rest of the fight. To my surprise, Alakazam comes out second. I'm panicking a little bit at this point because I do not have Mega Kick, and I've been relying on that to take out Alakazam throughout the entire run. However, it works out because Reflect is not going to do anything to any of the moves that I'm using. Thunderbolt is deployed, I get a lucky paralysis, and it looks like a Blizzard should take it out based on the damage that the Thunderbolt did. However, it looks like I probably got a high roll on the Thunderbolt and got a low roll on the Blizzard and did not manage to knock it out. However, because it was fully paralyzed, I was able to get another hit off and maintain my lead against my rival. Rhydon hits the floor, and you know what happens next. Bubble Beam just melts it. Have any Rhydons or Rhyhorns gotten to attack this entire run? I don't know. I don't think that they have. Once Gyarados hits the field, I'm starting to feel pretty confident. I know that I can outspeed at this point, and Thunderbolt is going to wreck it in one hit, same as the Bubble Beam shredded the Rhydon before it. So now I'm starting to feel pretty good. There's only 2 Pokemon left, Alakazam is out of the picture, and I'm not really worried about Arcanine. However, one thing that I wasn't counting on was for it to survive, especially by almost half of its HP. But because I have 4 double teams off, it's not going to be able to hit me with anything. It goes for a Leer anyways, which wouldn't have mattered. So now the only thing standing between us and the Hall of Fame is Venusaur. However, with that level up, we lost our badge boosts, and we have to rely on our raw stats unless we want to use double team again. But I don't. I go straight for the Blizzard. Kind of a gamble, given the lower accuracy, but it's 90 in this generation. One of the best higher elemental moves that there is. As it prepares Solar Beam, I go in for another Blizzard, it manages to connect, and we have done it. At level 66, King the Clefairy has managed to go through the entire Kanto region solo. With only the help of some BS evasion badge boost strategies, we have managed to make it all the way to the end of the game. I'm a little starstruck at this point because I didn't think that it was going to be this smooth, especially against the final rival battle. The champion is not to be trifled with. He has the best team variety, and, we had sort of been failing against him before. But in the end, the double team badge boost strategy is simply too powerful. If I were to do this again, I probably wouldn't use that strategy a second time. It's just a little too overpowered. Anyways, the official time on the Hall of Fame is 4 hours and 6 minutes. I really did not expect that. If I remember correctly, J-Rose's run for the Jigglypuff was over 7 hours. Granted, he had to get his Jigglypuff to a much higher level. I feel like we had a little bit of luck on this one, but I'm not going through the Elite Four again. Our strategy worked. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, and I'm going to submit this time as my final time. On the screen here, you can see the levels that Clefairy was at each of the badges that I obtained. If J-Rose does accept my challenge, he can use this as a guide to determine how many points each of us got. Again, seeing as he is armed with the knowledge of my run, getting to see how I did it and being able to strategize around it, and the fact that I'm kind of a novice in comparison, I have no reservations about his ability to defeat me. But if he rises to the challenge, I'm excited to see what he does with his run. With that, that's all I have for you. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching and have a good one. God damn it.